Think of Hollywood international stars and those particularly who performed in front of royalty. This particular story is very sad indeed because this Hollywood legend had a double whammy. Not only did she perform, yes, in the heavy woolen district as it was called then, in the very heart of Yorkshire, but sadly, due to tragedy, she missed out on performing at that year's Royal Variety Performance. As ever, let me explain. Morning chums, lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Nice to have your company, whatever you're doing. Yes, I hope you're keeping well. This is the beauty of St James's Park in the very heart of London. As you can see, there's a nice cream cart there. Yeah, oh, between you and I, I've looked at the prices. Eye-watering. I know. I said, if you got an ice cube you could spare, you know, I mean, you don't, I'm not being, I know I joke about things, but it's the principle, isn't it? You know, a £5 for an ice cream, when you think about that, you could make a meal with that. It's just a snack, isn't it? You agree with me, don't you? Absolutely. Well, I hope you do. Anyway, I'm not going back, you know, he wouldn't give me an ice cube. Never mind, I've got my flask, I'll get that out shortly. There's nothing wrong with sitting on a bench with a flask, is the chums? Absolutely. We have to watch the pennies. People joke and they say, you know, but I think in this climate, people are moving back to that. You know, making your own sandwiches, taking your own snacks out. Who can afford those sky-high coffee shop prices? I don't know about you. I find it fascinating personally. Let's get back, of course, to your story of the day. Think about it. In April 1967, a very spectacular event took place in the heavy woolen district town of Batley in West Yorkshire. And this actually is a wonderful story in many respects, because I was lucky enough many years later to meet the general manager of the Batley Variety Club, a wonderful man called Alan. And he had loads and loads and loads of great stories about all the stars that they had at that wonderful club. Incredible place when you think about it. Now, Jayne Mansfield, the Hollywood legend who was, some might say, a little bit on the decline at this particular point. The reason I wanted to share this story was I was invited recently to a screening of a brand new documentary of Jayne Mansfield by her daughter, Mariska Haggerty. Of course, we all remember Jayne and Mickey Haggerty, don't we? The bodybuilder come actor. They were phenomenally successful in the 50s right through to the early 60s. By the time Jayne arrived at Batley Variety Club, things hadn't gone particularly well for her. Her original tour here in the United Kingdom had been put together by Don Arden, according to Alan. Now, Don Arden, you'll remember, is the father of the X Factor judge, American Idol, etc., whatever, Sharon Osbourne. Jayne and Don had a spectacular falling out, and very quickly a gentleman called Bernard Hinchcliffe put together this tour, which included, yes, the brilliant Batley Variety Club and Greaseboro Working Men's Club. Yes, there is a place called Greaseboro, right? Now, what was interesting about this was Jayne was getting the equivalent for that week's work of £20,000 for the week. That is, in that time's money. That's what it is today. Now, apparently, according to Alan, what made him laugh, when he visited her at her hotel, the Holdsworth House Hotel in Wakefield, well, she kept all the money in a suitcase under the bed. Can you imagine being able to do that now, right? Apparently, when she turned up for rehearsals on Sunday evening, they're all sitting there, you know, she looked beautiful, stunning, all that sort of stuff, and she whipped out the violin. And they said, we don't want the violin. And she said, oh, right, well, shall I recite some Shakespeare? So Alan, who was very much a blunt northerner, said, no, look, love, you know, what they want here is you to come on in a bit of a dress, you know, sing a few songs, sit on a few laps, pat a few heads, etc., right? And you just, you know, the way northerners are blunt. So finally, she said, okay, I get it. I get what you're going to do. Yeah, if this is the act you want, this is the act I'll give you. And it turned out to be an absolute sensation. Jayne would do anything for publicity, as many people know, and she was an absolute star guest. But what was fascinating, according to Alan, was the fact that because her career was going slightly better over here in the United Kingdom, she was picking up a lot of positive press. A few people got in touch with the club to see if she would like to appear on that year's Royal Variety Performance. Now, this wouldn't be the first time that Jayne had met Queen Elizabeth. If you remember, she met her virtually 10 years ago at a Royal Command film performance and looked stunning and beautiful then. Jayne lapped up the idea, and the negotiations are going to be ongoing. Jayne also also, as you now know, had to go back to the United States to fulfill some contractual obligations there. But her idea, and this one what resurfaced, and Alan pointed this out, was she was already filming what we would call today a reality TV show, where she went round London and all the sights and looking at the Tower of London, all those sorts of things. He said she was far ahead of her time, a very intelligent woman, and knew exactly how to keep herself in the limelight. She saw this as the culmination of being re-invited back in front of royalty as well, you know, the icing on the cake. Sadly, as we all know, Jayne lost her life literally in 1967 in June, and that terrible automobile accident. And Mariska Haggerty, a lovely lady, as I say, know her well, I just wanted to share this story with her permission, because I'd obviously met Alan many times throughout my long career, and he just told me, as I say, so many fascinating stuff. We ended up making a documentary together, which was very well received. But it's nice to know, isn't it, that actually Jayne could have had her turn once again to perform in front of the Duke, and of the Duke of Edinburgh, should I say, and of course Queen Elizabeth. Sadly though, as we all know, it wasn't meant to be. And Jayne was still only 33 years old. Incredible, isn't it? Neil Sean, St James's Park, London.